You know, she's definitely a red flag, but red's my favorite color, so what it do? I found that the funniest thing. But there was a new Final Fantasy 16 trailer today called Ambition, and I have a breakdown, a lore breakdown. We found out a lot today. I'm gonna let the trailer play for a little bit, no volume. But we found out some information, such as some Yoshi P like making some announcements saying debugging and final adjustments are on the way. They're at the home stretch. So like we're kind of like getting near the end of this. There's going to be more to come with more reveals, and there are going to be future Q&As. So just like be ready for that. But without that all the way, we have some lore info for you that is on the website that if I pull up here, if you would like to read, I'll link this down below. But we did find out like a lot of interesting things, such as who Odin is, where like Garuda comes from, how the dominance works, and who Bahamut is. So I'll link that down below so you can read it. I'm going to play the trailer here and just kind of like react and tell you some of the lore behind that we found out. So with some of the closed captioning, of course, I'll link this down below if you would like to read it. But going through, so if we pause right here, we're going to go back just a second. We found out this handsome character right here. This is actually Ramu, I believe. So we don't actually know his name or what like region he comes from, but like as you'll see in the trailer, this is Ramu, and then this is obviously Clive, the main character. So I also don't know who this is, but they're talking about the Blight. We don't actually know what the Blight is, but if you played like Final Fantasy 15 before, or it's a common theme, it is something that is sucking the ether out of the world, and they just start to touch on it. More on that later as we get further on to the video, but now we're just talking about these crystals, and I'm going to pause here again. Each region seems to have a crystal, and as what they're talking about is this seems to be where the dominants get their power. So this is like where the icons come in and how we like not travel to, what's a good word for this? This is how we become one with the icons, or how the icons become the dominants and like interact with the people that can like turn into them. So each region seems to have one. And then it breaks down like into each region, because this right here is where the king of Rosaria is talking to his son Joshua, who is the Phoenix dominant, about how it's actually a gift and how he should be proud of it. If you didn't know, Joshua and Clive are brothers of the kingdom Rosaria. This is talking about Rosaria. This is like the traditional kingdom, whichever you think. And then this is like the Phoenix domain. Then we're talking about the Holy Empire here. This is what we just found out. The prince here is the like dominant of Bahamut. So that's right here. He is the Bahamut, the dominant, and he is loved by his people. Everyone loves him. We found out today in the little lore entry that they were talking about. And some dominants are revered, and some are loved, and some are hated. And like as they say in the trailer, they are outcast, with the exception of him. And a lot of people are pointing out there's a boy here, and he is like kind of unknown. We don't know who he is. We don't know if they're brothers, but the Empire is shaping up to be one of the driving like antagonists of this entire story. It's kind of interesting that they're an antagonist yet have a loved dominant. Now we're talking about the Republic here. This is of course Titan, and they just seem, based off of his demeanor, to be caught up in the war. He's talking about how he doesn't like the chaos, and no one thinks about the repercussions of their action. Now this is the Iron Kingdom. I don't exactly know who this is. If someone like definitely want to fill me in, you can definitely talk about it in the comments below. But this is the Iron Kingdom. This is the icon area. So these are the people who are trying to eradicate all of the icons, and they just don't want them to be a part of like the world, which I can get. They're super powerful beings. You don't want them. And then this is the area that we found out today. This is the kingdom of Waylud. It's like stuck in isolation. And, you know, everyone's favorite here. This is Garuda. And this is actually Odin. That's who we found out today. It's like Barbarossa or Barbaros. His name's on the thing. I can't pronounce these things ever. I'm sorry. But yeah, this is Odin. So we found out that Odin and Garuda come from the same region in this kingdom of Waylud that's kind of isolated. And the one thing I want to point out here is when they play this trailer and you see Garuda, she seems a lot more reserved than she was in the first one. And I think she's against the war, but Odin here really is kind of driving the war. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit anyway. So we obviously found out a lot of interesting things about the dolmens there in each of the regions and some of the like motivations they have. But this, if we go back to the first trailer, which I will in a little bit, this appears to be the kingdom of Waylud soldiers because we know the Royal Empire has the dragoons. So the Waylud soldiers appear to be in or Rosaria. You know, the kingdom of the phoenixes. I'm sorry if I screw up names. And this is a very interesting thing because this is the king, and you see the king get beheaded in front of his son Joshua and the like father of their main antagonist, and then you see this mysteriously hooded figure that is becoming Ifrit. But if you go back here and you watch it like carefully, it almost looks like someone of the own kingdom beheaded him, which doesn't make sense to me. And then as we get further along in the trailer, you can see that there are more like soldiers of this kingdom encroaching onto the sun. So I don't know if they're working with the Iron Kingdom or the like kingdom of Waylud, but like as you can see when Joshua turns into an icon here in just a second, that like they're scared by it. They don't know what to do because obviously you can't take on an icon. So like they're like running away, but they also look like they're like caped in the same armor. And then this guy right here, this is Remu. Okay, we're going to pause. Yes, it is definitely the guy at 31 that is with the main character, Clive. So we don't know much about him other than he's working with Clive at some point to solve the mystery of the Blight. A little bit more on that in just a second. So I'm kind of hopping around here. And this is trying to just going into some of the like half forms that we can have. Okay, now this is a very interesting part. I'm going to pause here. This girl right here, she is Shiva. You can start to see this here as she like starts to turn this guy into ice. And if we go to the previous trailer, that's pretty much the same outfit and hair as the person with Clive at the beginning of the Dominance trailer with the like, what is this, a throwback to Final Fantasy VIII? So it's just kind of an interesting connection that is made there, which I was like, oh my gosh. So they just kind of talked about, and that's a guy that's frozen. And then this just goes into like the dominance and like some of the half forms and, you know, more screaming and red flags here. And like, I don't know. I'm not playing the music. Definitely play the music for yourself. But like, as you can see, you know, there's some pretty good action here. I'm not going to do any gameplay breakdowns or anything, but I will cut back to the other trailer once all of this is finished. I think this is everything. So just more like full forms, half forms, just more interesting things. That is Odin there, by the way. Before it cut into this sequence of icons battling, some throwbacks to the previous trailer. This is once again the Shiva girl, who is very much like asking for people to bow to her, which is pretty interesting. We don't know which region she's from. And then this is once again Odin, you know, showing how he took over the kingdom with the strength of his sword, not just necessarily his dominance. And it goes into all of the dominance that we know. Now, this is where we get to some spicy news. So this is Odin, Garuda. I think this is Garuda, Bahamut, Titan. Maybe if I scroll up, I can figure this out. This is what is unknown at this time. I called it the Blight Father when I was working on theories. Some say Ravana. Some say a combination of Phoenix and Ifrit, which sort of makes sense if you look at the trailer here, which is Phoenix and Ifrit. And I just think, you know, Joshua's your brother is a Phoenix dominant. You're Ifrit, which is, you know, the Ifrit dominant. So that's what I think. But I want to go back to the previous trailer when this part comes up where they're like talking about the war or you see the soldiers. So right here. So this is the soldier, which I believe also looks like the soldiers from the Odin one from the Kingdom of Waylood. And if you go into the previous trailer and you go to like the war sequence, when you see the two like Bahamut fighting Odin, which makes a lot more sense. So it's like right here, Bahamut fighting Odin, which means that it would be the Kingdom of Waylood versus the Holy Empire. But when you like see some of the soldiers on the battlefield, you can make out the difference between the two pretty easily. So like I just thought that was an interesting point. It kind of shows that the Holy Empire is like kind of greedy in a sense. And you can kind of get that from a sense, but I really liked how they showed a little bit more human aspect to Garuda here and a little bit more like interesting aspects about the dolmens and the icons. But that's like my kind of lore breakdown. I'll definitely have more in depth as we find out more information. But until next time, like the drill. Like the drill. Like and subscribe. You know the drill. Whatever. You know the drill. Have a good day. Goodbye.